Hollywood has produced many films that not only destroyed the careers of actors, but also the production houses behind them. These movies are now considered among the most cursed films of Hollywood's golden age. Turn down the lights as we delve into Tinseltown's most infamous cursed movie legends. Noah's Ark, 1928. During the silent era, Noah's Ark earned a deadly reputation for its climactic flood sequence. Director Michael Curtis, later famous for Casablanca, staged a massive deluge by unleashing 600,000 gallons of water on set. The result was catastrophic. At least 3 extras drowned, and dozens more were severely injured with broken limbs. Future star John Wayne, then a young extra, narrowly escaped harm. The disaster prompted Hollywood to introduce new safety regulations for stunts in 1929. Investigations revealed that Curtis had pushed realism too far, prioritizing spectacle over safety. Careers were cut short. Those extras never got to see the film's release. And the tragedy haunted Curtis's early reputation. The film itself, a part-talky biblical epic, became infamous for the lives it claimed. Industry veterans whispered that the production was cursed due to the unusual number of casualties. In reality, negligence and the pursuit of grandiosity were to blame. Noah's Ark stands as a somber lesson in Hollywood history. Its curse led directly to changes in filmmaking safety protocols. The legacy of this film is a safer industry, paid for with real blood, a cursed beginning for Hollywood's golden age that still chills those who know the story. 13 Women, 1932. Pre-code Hollywood saw its share of tragedy, and 13 Women is remembered for one heartbreaking story. This thriller featured Peg Entwistle, a stage actress making her big-screen debut. Sadly, Peg's role was severely cut down before release, possibly due to strict early censorship. RKO Studios then released her from contract, leaving her career in limbo. Despondent, in September 1932, Peg climbed atop the famed Hollywoodland sign and jumped to her death, her body found below the giant H. The film premiered a month after her suicide, turning her first film into a posthumous release. Peg's tragic end spawned the legend of the Hollywood sign girl, and even reports of a ghostly presence near the sign. The curse, in this case, was the cruel hand of fate and Hollywood's unforgiving nature. Peg's burgeoning career was cut tragically short, and 13 Women gained notoriety as her first and last film. While no supernatural events plagued the set, the aftermath cast a pall over the movie. Decades later, Entwistle's story is recounted as a cautionary tale of Hollywood heartbreak, a human tragedy that forever linked 13 Women to the lore of cursed Hollywood, where a single film's failure and studio politics precipitated a young actress's despair. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. Beloved classic The Wizard of Oz hid a nightmare behind the curtain. Its production was plagued with accidents so bizarre that some crew began whispering about a curse. Buddy Ebsen, the original Tin Man, was hospitalized after the aluminum makeup coated his lungs, nearly killing him. He had to abandon the role, devastating his career momentum. His replacement, Jack Haley, also suffered a serious eye infection from the makeup. Actress Margaret Hamilton, portraying the Wicked Witch, endured a horrific on-set accident. A trapdoor timing error during her fiery exit caused second-degree burns on her face and hands. Her green copper-based makeup had to be hastily removed as it burned into her skin. Hamilton's stunt double later was injured in a broomstick explosion. The film's set conditions were grueling. Extreme heat from Technicolor lighting made life miserable, and even Toto the dog wasn't spared, breaking a paw after an actor stepped on her. An enduring urban legend about a Munchkin suicide caught on film further fueled the film's eerie reputation, but that myth has been debunked. Still, the real incidents were enough. Star Judy Garland was relentlessly worked and medicated by the studio, a factor that contributed to her later struggles. Another tragic footnote. Despite the joy it brought on screen, The Wizard of Oz left several careers scarred by pain. Its supposed curse highlights the very real cost paid by the people who created the magic of Oz. Rebel Without a Cause, 1955. Rebel Without a Cause captured the disillusioned youth of the 1950s and became infamous for the fates of its young stars. The curse began even before the film's release. Its iconic lead, James Dean, died in a car crash in September 1955, just weeks before the premiere. Dean's stunning death at 24 cemented him as a legend, but also cast a dark shadow over the film. Co-star Sal Mineo, who played Plato, met a violent end years later. He was stabbed to death in 1976, at age 37. Just a few years after that, leading lady Natalie Wood drowned under mysterious circumstances in 1981. With all three leads gone young and unnaturally, whispers of a curse grew. Even supporting actor Nick Adams died mysteriously in 1968, intensifying the legend. The careers of Dean, Mineo, and Wood were all cut short. Dean and Mineo's promising trajectories ended abruptly, and Wood's long Hollywood career ended in unanswered questions. Investigations into Wood's drowning remain inconclusive, adding to the film's mystique. While each death had its own context, from Dean's love of racing to Mineo's random murder, Rebel Without a Cause became a morbid Hollywood legend. The tragic destinies of its stars had a chilling effect. It's remembered not just as a cultural milestone, but as a film seemingly marked by misfortune. The Conqueror, 1956. John Wayne's ill-fated epic The Conqueror is often cited as a textbook example of a cursed production. The problems weren't apparent during filming. They came years later in the form of devastating illnesses. The movie was shot in the Utah desert downwind of a nuclear test site, a fact the filmmakers were unaware of. Cast and crew spent weeks amid radioactive fallout. The consequences were tragic. By the early 1980s, an alarming number of those involved had developed cancer. Out of 220 crew, 91 developed cancer and 46 died. Victims included stars John Wayne and Susan Hayward, and director Dick Powell. Wayne, Hollywood's epitome of rugged health, succumbed to stomach cancer in 1979. Hayward and Powell also died of cancer, as did co-star Agnes Moorehead. These illnesses severely impacted or ended their careers and lives, casting a retrospectively grim pall over the film. Many believe the radioactive location was to blame. The Guardian later reported on the tragedy, cementing the curse narrative. Some relatives of the crew noted that even local Native American extras were affected, suggesting the death toll might be higher than reported. Aside from health issues, the movie was a notorious flop creatively. Wayne's casting as Genghis Khan was itself called a Hollywood mistake. It's as if the film was doomed on all fronts. In Hollywood lore, The Conqueror's curse is a sobering reminder of real-world dangers, with a legacy literally written in stone on the victims' gravestones. The Misfits, 1961. Billed as a dramatic powerhouse uniting Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and Montgomery Clift, The Misfits has since been remembered as a cursed swan song for Hollywood's classic stars. The on-set atmosphere was troubled. Monroe's personal life was in chaos, and Clift was battling his own demons with alcohol and pills. The real curse emerged after filming. Just days after production wrapped, Clark Gable suffered a heart attack and died. Some speculated the film's physically demanding stunts contributed to his sudden death at 59. Tragedy continued. Marilyn Monroe died the following year of an overdose at 36, marking The Misfits as her final completed film. Co-star Montgomery Clift lasted only a few more years. His health deteriorated, and he died in 1966 at age 45, with many citing The Misfits as his last great role. The film effectively ended the era of its stars. Director John Huston later reflected on the eerie outcome of losing his cast so soon. Critics have lauded the performances, calling it some of the best work of each actor, but that only adds to the poignancy. The curse of the Misfits lies in how it became the unexpectedly final chapter for three Hollywood icons. What was meant as a new beginning for these stars turned into a haunting epitaph for the Golden Age legends involved. Incubus, 1966. A little-known horror film, Incubus has gained notoriety as one of the most cursed productions ever. Filmed entirely in the constructed language Esperanto and starring a young William Shatner, the movie's off-screen events were far scarier than its plot. 2 years after filming, multiple cast members met tragic ends. The most shocking incident involved actor Milos, who just months after the film's release, murdered his girlfriend and then died in 1966. Another actress, Anne Atmar, died by suicide only weeks after shooting wrapped. These back-to-back tragedies gave rise to talk of a curse. As if that weren't enough, not long after, the film's negatives went missing for decades, making Incubus effectively disappear, a cursed film in both fate and availability. Some point out the film's occult themes and use of Esperanto as inviting bad luck, though there's no evidence of anything supernatural at play, just grim coincidence. The careers of those involved never recovered. Shatner himself went on to success with Star Trek, but he's recalled feeling uneasy about the film. Incubus languished in obscurity, with its eerie reputation intact. When it finally resurfaced, its curse legend was already cemented. With multiple untimely deaths and the film's vanishing act, Incubus remains a chilling footnote in cinema history. A film seemingly damned from the start. Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Roman Polanski's horror classic, Rosemary's Baby, is often labeled one of the most cursed movies ever made, and with good reason. The film's eerie subject matter, a woman unwittingly bearing the devil's child, seemed to bleed into reality. During production, lead actress Mia Farrow suffered stress. She even received divorce papers from Frank Sinatra on set. Producer William Castle was barraged with hate mail over the film's satanic themes, and he later developed severe kidney stones, at one point hallucinating scenes from the movie in the hospital. More darkly, the film's composer, Krzysztof Komeda, fell into a coma after an accident and died, mirroring a coma that happens to a character in the story. But the most infamous tragedy struck a year after the 1968 release. Polanski's pregnant wife, Sharon Tate, was brutally murdered by the Manson family in 1969. Tate's death, she was stabbed to death in a crime that shocked the nation, had an uncanny connection to the film in the public's mind. Suddenly, a movie about demonic evil seemed linked to real-life evil. Rumors swirled that the film itself was cursed, or that making it had unleashed something. Polanski, devastated by Tate's murder, stepped away from Hollywood for a time. Castle never had another hit film, convinced the curse was real. Rosemary's Baby sparked talk of Hollywood inviting the devil, and even Ira Levin, who wrote the original novel, felt guilty for what the story seemed to trigger. Factually, these events were unrelated, but the cluster of misfortunes cemented this film's legendary curse. The Exorcist, 1973. Often cited as the most terrifying film of all time, The Exorcist carried darkness not just on screen, but behind the scenes as well. The production was beset by a series of misfortunes that fed talk of a curse. Early on, a freak accident set the tone. A pigeon flew into a circuit box and ignited a blaze on set, destroying the McNeil family house interior, except for the bedroom where the exorcisms take place. This eerie detail wasn't lost on the crew. The fire caused a 6-week delay and prompted the hiring of a priest to bless the set. Cast members also suffered losses parallel to the film's subject matter. Jack McGowran, who played Burke Dennings, died unexpectedly from influenza shortly after completing his role. Vasiliki Maliaros, who played Father Karras's mother, also passed away during production. These deaths, strangely mirroring on-screen events, unnerved everyone. Star Linda Blair and Max von Sydow each lost close family members during filming. Actor Jason Miller narrowly survived a motorcycle accident on a rain-slicked New York street. On set, both Blair and Ellen Burstyn sustained chronic back injuries while performing violent possession scenes. Footage of Burstyn's painful fall was even used in the film. The accumulation of incidents was so disturbing that it fueled the film's marketing as being surrounded by evil. Director William Friedkin's unorthodox methods likely contributed to the chaos, but cast and crew began to genuinely fear something unholy was at work. The Exorcist emerged as a box office smash and critical milestone, but its legacy includes decades of whispers that the film itself was cursed, an idea kept alive by these very real tragedies and accidents. The Omen, 1976. With its diabolical subject matter, the Antichrist as a child, The Omen seemed to provoke the wrath of unseen forces during filming. Even before production began, producer Harvey Bernhard reportedly wore a cross on set, insisting the film was courting trouble. The events that followed gave credence to his fears. Star Gregory Peck's plane was struck by lightning en route to London. In a bizarre twist, executive producer Mace Neufeld's plane was also struck by lightning on another flight. Writer David Seltzer experienced a third near miss when his airplane was struck by lightning too. The odds of such occurrences beggared belief and had the crew on edge. The string of bad luck continued on the ground. An animal handler who worked on the baboon scene was attacked and mauled by a lion shortly after working on the film. Special effects artist John Richardson, who devised the Omen's infamous decapitation scene, faced a horrifying echo in real life. He and his assistant were in a car accident where she was decapitated, reportedly near a road sign reading, Omen, 66.6 kilometers. An almost too-on-the-nose coincidence. During filming, a trained Rottweiler went berserk and bit its handler, ignoring all commands. A scene straight out of the movie, but real. Perhaps most chilling, a planned aerial stunt was changed last minute, sparing the crew. The rented plane was used for a commercial flight instead, and crashed immediately after takeoff, killing everyone on board. The cumulative effect on those involved was profound. Many truly believed dark forces were shadowing the production. While The Omen was a success and boosted careers, the curse left an indelible mark. Surviving crew have recounted these incidents for decades, cementing The Omen as one of Hollywood's most haunted productions. Superman, 1978. The so-called Superman curse spans decades and isn't tied to a single film, but rather to multiple actors who donned the Man of Steel's cape. By the time Superman hit theaters with Christopher Reeve, whispers of a curse had already begun and would only grow stronger. The first alleged victim was George Reeves, who played Superman on 1950s TV. In 1959, Reeves was found dead from a gunshot wound under mysterious circumstances, ruled a suicide. The strange part: no fingerprints on the gun and swirling theories of foul play. He died days before his scheduled wedding, ending his career on a dark note. Moving to the 1978 film, Christopher Reeve became a superstar as Superman, only to face tragedy in 1995, when a horseback riding accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. Reeve's vibrant acting career was effectively ended in an instant. He passed away in 2004, and heartbreakingly, his wife Dana Reeve died 2 years later of lung cancer, despite never smoking. The curse's lore reaches further. Kid actor Lee Quigley, who played Baby Kal-El in 1978's Superman, died at 14 from solvent abuse. Margot Kidder, who played Lois Lane, suffered a severe mental breakdown in the 1990s and a car accident that left her temporarily paralyzed, sidelining her career for years. Even behind the scenes, things were grim. Marlon Brando lost his daughter to suicide and his son to a murder conviction, dying in 2004, just months apart from Reeve. Earlier still, Kirk Allen, the first actor to play Superman on screen, found himself hopelessly typecast and struggled to find work afterward, a more career-oriented misfortune, but one that fed the idea of a jinx on anyone associated with the role. While modern Superman actors like Henry Cavill have fared fine so far, the legacy of tragedy for many classic Superman portrayers persists in Hollywood memory. The curse may simply be a series of coincidences spanning eras, but for fans and historians, the pattern is hard to ignore. Apocalypse Now, 1979. Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now was an ambitious Vietnam War epic that nearly became a real-life nightmare. Its production in the Philippines was so chaotic and calamity-stricken that many believed the film was cursed by the war gods. Early in the shoot, the production was devastated by a typhoon. Sets were obliterated as monsoon rains and winds ravaged the filming location. Coppola had poured his personal finances into the movie, and the destruction pushed him to the brink of ruin. As filming dragged on, lead actor Martin Sheen, only 36 at the time, suffered a near-fatal heart attack on set. Alone and far from immediate help, Sheen crawled to a road to find aid. Coppola was stricken with guilt, and for a moment even feared his star might die on location. Production paused as Sheen recuperated, and Coppola reportedly had a nervous breakdown, fearing his project was doomed. There were also reports of the crew going a bit stir-crazy in the jungle, with rampant drug use and a palpable sense of dread mirroring the film's themes. One actor, Frederick Forrest, described the vibe as increasingly insane. Coppola famously said, "We had access to too much money, too much equipment, and little by little, we went insane." The director even threatened suicide multiple times under the pressure. In the end, the film was completed and became a masterpiece. But the careers involved paid a price. Coppola's health and fortune were almost wrecked, and he wouldn't direct another film for years. Sheen emerged with a new lease on life, but has called the shoot the worst experience of his career. The curse of Apocalypse Now lies in how close it came to derailing the people behind it. The misfortunes were ultimately overcome, yet the harrowing production is now as legendary as the film itself. Poltergeist, 1982. Poltergeist Curse has become shorthand for a series of horrifying real-life events that followed this 1982 horror classic. The movie about a suburban home overrun by vengeful spirits was a hit, but its legacy turned dark as multiple cast members died tragically young. The most heartbreaking was Heather O'Rourke, the child star who played Little Carol Ann. Just 6 years after the film's release, Heather collapsed and died at age 12 due to a misdiagnosed bowel obstruction, shocking fans and crew alike. Her death in 1988 was a huge blow. Heather had filmed 3 Poltergeist movies. Her bright future was cut short. Even earlier, in 1982, mere months after the first film opened, Dominique Dunne, who played the teenage daughter Dana, was brutally attacked by her ex-boyfriend and strangled into a coma. She died 5 days later, at just 22. These 2 young actresses' deaths fueled talk of a curse. But the grim roll call continued. Julian Beck, who portrayed the malevolent preacher Cain in Poltergeist 2, died of stomach cancer in 1985 before that sequel was released. And Will Sampson, who appeared in Poltergeist 2 as a Native American shaman, died in 1987 from complications after a heart-lung transplant. 4 actors from one franchise dying within a few years seemed beyond coincidence. On set, other spooky legends arose. JoBeth Williams claimed the production used real human skeletons as props, which some believe triggered the curse. Will Sampson, himself a medicine man, even performed an exorcism ceremony on the set one night after sensing bad juju. While the franchise made Craig T. Nelson and others into familiar faces, the mounting body count cast a long shadow. The tragedies undeniably impacted the surviving cast's psyche. Many interviews years later show them uneasy discussing the films. Whether coincidence or something more sinister, the Poltergeist series remains synonymous with Hollywood curses, a case where life took a darker turn than even the film's ghostly plot. Fitzcarraldo, 1982. Werner Herzog's Fitzcarraldo is not a Hollywood film per se, but its production saga is so disastrous it's entered film legend. Shot in the Peruvian Amazon, the movie required the hauling of a 320-ton steamship over a mountain, mirroring its protagonist's insane mission. This Herculean task seemed to drag misfortune in its wake. The original lead actor, Jason Robards, contracted dysentery on location and had to abandon the film after weeks of shooting. His replacement, Klaus Kinski, brought his own kind of chaos. Kinski's volatile behavior terrorized the crew, to the point a local indigenous chief reportedly offered to murder Kinski for Herzog. But the curse wasn't just temperament, it was physical danger. In an infamous sequence, Herzog chose to genuinely pull a ship over a hill without special effects. During this grueling months-long endeavor, numerous indigenous extras were injured, and reportedly, several were killed. One tragic incident involved a lumberjack who suffered a severe snakebite in the jungle. With no time to get to a hospital, he amputated his own foot with a chainsaw to prevent venom spread. The production's doctor called the film set clinically crazy. Cast and crew were plagued by disease, injury, and exhaustion. Herzog himself later said, "I shouldn't make movies like this anymore." The budget and schedule ballooned, and the film almost sank under the weight of its own ambition. Incredibly, Herzog finished the film, and Fitzcarraldo was released to critical acclaim, but not without cost. The careers of some involved never fully recovered from the trauma. Robards lost what could have been a defining role. Kinski's reputation as a madman was cemented. Many Peruvian locals bore the scars of the shoot. If ever a production seemed jinxed by hubris, it was Fitzcarraldo, a real-life epic of cursed cinema that proved art can exact a brutal price. Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983. Perhaps one of the most notorious on-set tragedies in film history occurred during Twilight Zone, the movie, casting a permanent shadow over the anthology film. In July 1982, actor Vic Morrow was filming a segment set in Vietnam, directed by John Landis. The scene called for Morrow's character to carry two children while fleeing from a pursuing U.S. helicopter in a mock Vietnamese village. Special effects explosions were set to go off as the low-flying helicopter hovered above. In a catastrophic turn, an explosion too close to the chopper caused the pilot to lose control. The helicopter crashed down onto the actors below. Morrow and child actors, Micah Din Lei and Renee Shinyi Chen, were killed instantly. Morrow and Le were decapitated by the rotor blades. The horrific accident made worldwide news and resulted in a high-profile trial. Landis and 4 crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter for violating child labor laws and disregarding safety. The court case revealed disturbing details. Landis had been warned the stunt was too risky. He had also flouted regulations by employing the children after hours. Although the defendants were acquitted in 1987, the reputational damage was massive. Hollywood's safety standards for stunts and child actors became far stricter as a direct consequence. The curse here is grounded in very real negligence and its aftermath. Vic Morrow's promising career was tragically cut short. He is now remembered more for his death than his work. The 2 children, hired in secret, lost their futures entirely. Landis's career, while it continued, carried the stigma of this tragedy. He himself said the incident will haunt him forever. Twilight Zone. The movie may have delivered 4 eerie stories on screen, but it's the unscripted horror behind the scenes that has defined it. To this day, it's a grim reminder of the lethal stakes of filmmaking when safety falters. The Serpent and the Rainbow, 1988. Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow, a horror film about Haitian voodoo, encountered such bizarre incidents that Shudder's cursed film series devoted an episode to it. Filming began in Haiti during the waning days of Baby Doc Duvalier's regime, a time of civil unrest and violence. Crew members spoke of an oppressive atmosphere from the start. On the very first night of shooting, a real voodoo priest performed a ceremony to bless the production, seeking to ward off evil. Cast and crew later wondered if that ritual saved their lives, because chaos soon erupted. Political turmoil forced the production to flee Haiti for the Dominican Republic in the middle of filming, essentially escaping a brewing revolution. But even off Haitian soil, eerie events persisted. According to crew accounts, at least one crew member became possessed during filming, exhibiting bizarre, trance-like behavior, and another had a near-possession experience. These incidents, though hard to verify, left participants shaken. Star Bill Pullman and others also recalled a full-scale riot breaking out near set, endangering the crew. Props and footage were nearly destroyed in the chaos. The production's challenges weren't just supernatural. They had to navigate snake-infested jungles, disease, and distrustful locals. While no one died during the making of Serpent, the cast and crew were convinced that dark forces were toying with them. Producer David Ladd later noted that such a harrowing shoot would likely never be allowed today. The film's box office performance suffered, and some involved felt the curse followed it. Craven himself had mixed feelings, as if the film took something out of him spiritually. The Serpent and the Rainbow remains a cult favorite, and its making of stories, voodoo blessings, alleged possessions, and narrow escapes bolster its reputation as one of the craziest, cursed productions a horror movie has ever seen. The Crow, 1994. In March 1993, a tragedy struck the set of The Crow that would forever mark the film as cursed. Rising star Brandon Lee, son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, was killed during filming in a horrific on-set accident. Ironically, Brandon was filming a scene where his character is shot to death. A .44 Magnum revolver, supposed to fire blanks, discharged a lodged dummy bullet that had accidentally been left in the barrel. The makeshift projectile struck Brandon in the abdomen, causing severe internal injuries. He was rushed to the hospital, but after 6 hours of surgery, the 28-year-old actor was pronounced dead. The incident was ruled negligence, a cascade of safety failures with props and firearms. The shock of Brandon Lee's death sent ripples through Hollywood, reminding everyone of the earlier Twilight Zone catastrophe. Production on The Crow was suspended and nearly canceled. Ultimately, with Lee's family's blessing, the filmmakers completed the movie using stand-ins and early CGI as a tribute to Brandon's final work. When The Crow was released in 1994, it was dedicated to him and his fiancée. The film's dark themes of life after death took on an eerily literal tone. Fans and media couldn't help but draw parallels to Bruce Lee's untimely death in 1973, and talk of a Lee family curse resurfaced. Beyond Brandon's death, other minor incidents on set had already spooked the crew. A crew member suffered serious burns, a stuntman was badly injured, and an off-set construction worker was accidentally killed. While those incidents may have been standard movie set risks, Brandon's death was anything but routine. It abruptly ended a promising career. Brandon was on the cusp of major stardom. In terms of impact, his death prompted permanent changes in Hollywood firearms safety protocols. The legacy of The Crow is now inseparable from the tragedy that occurred. Its cult success is bittersweet, underscored by the sense that a real-life curse robbed the world of an emerging talent, in a scene hauntingly close to the film's own plot. Atuk, unproduced. Not all cursed movies ever made it to the screen. The comedy Atuk is an infamous example of a film that never was, seemingly because every lead actor attached met an untimely end. Atuk was a screenplay adaptation of the novel The Incomparable Atuk, about an Inuit man in New York City. The script circulated in Hollywood for decades, enticing many comedians. But one by one, each prospective star died, giving rise to the legend of Atuk, the unmakeable movie. In the early 1980s, John Belushi was first slated to play Atuk, until his fatal overdose in 1982 at age 33. The project stalled, then revived in 1988 with comedian Sam Kinison. Kinison actually shot a few scenes, but disagreements halted production. Not long after, Kinison died in a car crash in 1992. Next up, larger-than-life actor John Candy expressed interest. Candy read the script, then died of a heart attack in 1994 at 43. The curse's most famous victim was Chris Farley, often considered Belushi's comedic heir. Farley was discussing Atuk in the 90s, and even had a script on hand. Tragically, he too died of an overdose in 1997 at age 33, eerily the same age as Belushi. One rumor even claims Farley gave the script to his friend Phil Hartman, and that Hartman's murder by his wife in 1998 was the curse's final strike. Though that detail is speculative, it's true that 4 gifted comedians died in succession after interest in Atuk. The screenplay became taboo. No actor would touch it. The obvious explanation is coincidence. These were all overweight comedians with substance issues. Sadly, a high-risk group. But in Hollywood lore, Atuk is the script with a body count. Its curse ended not only careers, but lives. To this day, Atuk remains unfilmed, serving as a grim joke about a screenplay that could kill to never see the light of day. Giant, 1956. A sweeping Texas epic featuring James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor, and Rock Hudson. Giant became legendary for both its on-screen drama and its tragic aftermath. The most infamous part of the film's so-called curse is James Dean's untimely death. Just days after wrapping his final scenes, Dean took his newly purchased Porsche Spyder out for a drive and never came back. On September 30th, 1955, he crashed at high speed and died instantly at age 24, making Giant his posthumous final film. His death sent shockwaves through Hollywood, and his absence haunted the film's premiere a year later. But Dean wasn't the only one affected by Giant's dark legacy. His co-star Nick Adams, a close friend, and one of Dean's biggest admirers, died mysteriously in 1968 from a suspected drug overdose at just 36. Rock Hudson, another major star of Giant, became the face of Hollywood's silent suffering decades later. He died in 1985 from AIDS-related complications, marking one of the first publicized celebrity deaths from the disease. His illness and hidden struggles made him another tragic figure linked to the film. Elizabeth Taylor, meanwhile, suffered several personal tragedies after Giant, including the sudden death of her husband, Mike Todd, in a plane crash in 1958. Though her career continued, Taylor endured numerous health issues and near-fatal accidents. While Giant is regarded as a cinematic triumph, the deaths and misfortunes of its cast members led some to believe it carried a curse. 3 of its leads, Dean, Adams, and Hudson, never lived to old age, leaving behind a film that, in retrospect, feels like a farewell to an era and its ill-fated stars. Cleopatra, 1963. One of the most infamously troubled productions in Hollywood history, Cleopatra was not only a financial disaster, but also a career-damaging ordeal for many involved. The film nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox, ballooning into one of the most expensive films ever made due to constant delays, rewrites, and on-set illnesses. The film's star, Elizabeth Taylor, was at the center of the storm. She fell gravely ill during filming, requiring an emergency tracheotomy after nearly dying from pneumonia. Doctors barely saved her life, and production was halted for months. When she returned, the media focused less on her acting and more on her scandalous affair with Richard Burton, which began during filming. Their relationship, both passionate and turbulent, overshadowed their careers and was condemned worldwide, leading to backlash that affected Taylor's public image for years. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz suffered a mental and physical breakdown from the stress of the film's chaotic shoot. At one point, He was so exhausted that he was editing the movie while still filming it, an unheard-of practice that nearly destroyed his career. The film's financial failure also had lasting effects. Despite becoming a box office hit, its astronomical budget meant it never turned into a real profit, forcing Fox to sell off assets, including its backlot, which later became Century City in Los Angeles. The supposed curse of Cleopatra wasn't about deaths, but about how it derailed the careers and lives of those involved. Taylor, Burton, and Mankiewicz all emerged from the production permanently changed, and Fox barely survived the experience. The film was meant to be a defining achievement, but instead, it became a cautionary tale of the Hollywood excess.